What's up, everyone? So I wanted to make I think, a much needed video for me and for others, how to win over adultery. So if you're one of those people that adultery is one of your things where you don't like it and you struggle with anxiety about it, or I also want to help those that are in adultery and how to come out of it. So I want to talk about those two things. But first, let me address, you know, um, for those that are, you know, have anxiety over adultery. One of the things that you need to realize is that you are not okay if you feel like you can handle it on your own. I would highly recommend getting professional counseling, maybe a Christian counselor, maybe a pastor, but I would even go higher up than a pastor. Not that there is a higher up than a pastor in the church, but as far as, counseling is concerned, I would even try to go to a Christian counselor to really talk to them about some of your fears, some of your worries, some of your anxieties. And that brings up another good point, is to start to talk to God about it. Talk to God about this worry that you have about adultery. Now, one of the things that I was making note of is that if you think you cannot handle adultery, then I recommend do not get married, or if you are separated from your spouse, I recommend staying separated, you know, and just continuing with God if you think you can handle that. Some people really do like companionship, so they may not want to choose the single life. But I just recommend, having some resources in place because we live in a fallen world. You know, it is easier to run into these problems. And because we live in the last days, it's like super easy to really, come across this bad quality in your spouse. And so, um, I think how to win over adultery, if you're prone to maybe commit adultery, I think you may have a skewed understanding about, your relationship with God. So I always like to preach from a, secure salvation type of standpoint. But I also like to warn people that the Bible does have a lot of warnings about, kind of not living life as if you are for sure you're headed on the right road. And, Proverbs says you could be on the right road and still end up dead. And so I think that is a warning to let us know, hey, we should not always be living our Christian lives as if, we can never fail or we can never possibly disappoint God to the point where we go to the lake of fire. Now, that's a little bit heavy, but if you really want to win over adultery, maybe you should try to trick yourself, even though you may have, once saved, always saved mentality. Maybe you should try to kind of, help yourself understand that your salvation may not be as secure as you think, especially if you're in something as serious as adultery. Adultery is one of those things that is as serious as murder, pretty much. So, if not worse, because there's a lot of passages, for example, in the book of Ecclesiastes, he said that, basically worse than death is a woman whose arms are like bands, and, basically he was saying not necessarily, I don't think it's specifically only women, but it's men or women, or when you have a spouse that it feels like you're chained to them and they make your life a living hell. And so, but that passage also goes to say that if you fear God, you can escape that type of spouse. So I would say having the fear of God is the next solution when talking about how to win over adultery. Is you have to have that fear of God, cultivated, and I think it's hard to do. Even I have thought that I understood the fear of God, and in reality, it's something that we have to really analyze in our different life choices that we're making, whether we are, actually fearing God, or are we, not really doing a good job at the fear of the Lord. Now, I don't want to really go into, you should probably know, if you're watching this, you should know at least what the fear of the Lord is. Hopefully, you know what the fear of the Lord is. But basically, the book of Proverbs says it is to hate evil. So, you know, depending on what level of adultery you're in, because I think there are different levels of adultery, um, you could possibly have a very, skewed fear of the Lord that you're having. And I think that really ties into what I said earlier about, kind of having a skewed opinion about your salvation. Now, I want to address, some people think that, oh, my spouse is so bad or so this or that, then I should commit adultery. And, I think these are things that we have to go to get professional help with. We sometimes as human beings think that we can handle some of these situations on our own. But some of this is just, God has already said it's not good for man to be alone. And so sometimes we have to go through these things with people and, let them know that, hey, I'm dealing with, some heavy stuff. Either my spouse is cheating on me, or, and apparently does not care, or, I'm cheating on them and I seem like I cannot break free. So that's what I kind of wanted to do, is address both of those type of, sides of adultery, you know. But I want to just emphasize you cannot go through this alone, but also don't think that people will understand what you're going through, because again, we are in the last days. We're in perilous times. So a lot of people can be caught up in adultery. You read the story of Noah and Lot. There were only a few people left in the last days that were really walking with God. Everyone else has corrupted their way or turned away. But I would say you can still get professional help. Don't be scared like, oh, this person may not be a true Christian. Well, in general, people are just going to help you, in general, and not necessarily go into their own personal struggles. So, um, you know, but anyway, this is just all my opinion. I'm just here to offer you some help. Maybe there is a lack of these videos online. Okay. So going into, if you are the one that is committing adultery, I think first, if you're getting to the point where you're like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore, but I think I am addicted. You have to get addiction counseling. You have to get addiction help, and you have to really, fight for your soul. because I want you to, try to understand that if you were to die, you could possibly, you know, have a tremendous loss of rewards at the judgment seat of Christ, or you may not even be saved to begin with, because there are certain things that, we have to just use the power of God to overcome. And, there's no other way to really state it other than, you know, uh, we need the power of Jesus to overcome, the powers of this world. Because if you're in addiction, where you're just like, I know my spouse is over here, but I love this person or I love that person, or they offer me such a good deal, or their life seems to be better, so I'm going to go with them. Understand that our lives are short here on this earth, and I thank God for that, because honestly, this world is heavy. We live in perilous times. But there are some practical things that we can do. um One, I think surrendering your life to God. If you say, you know what, Jesus, get on the throne of my life, and honestly reach out to Jesus and say, you know what, Jesus, I am in adultery and I cannot stop. What should I do? Now, here's the deal. This answer sounds so simple,